Eh. What is going on? What the fudge is this? Do I have... That was annoying. Actually, I probably don't need these now I think about it. I just remove that. Okay. Probably a couple things I need to keep in mind moving forward. It's been a while since I've done just straight up just chatting. Normally, whenever I want to do normal just chatting, I just do planned streams. But it's a little different, huh? It's a little bit of a different vibe. There's a couple of other things that I've changed a little bit since, or while kind of considering things from a streaming perspective. I should probably give me a sec. There you go. Sorry about that. Like, my hair is getting pretty long, and a while back I mentioned how my camera can't always pick up me blinking or my eyes very well. So I'm currently using a bandana to keep my hair out of my eyes so it has an easier time. And I might do this regularly, to be honest with you, because I've noticed that it doesn't seem to be picking up my eyes a lot more consistently now that my hair isn't in my eyes. Although I probably do need to get a haircut anyways. So we'll see how short I end up cutting my hair. I've also noticed a couple of other issues recently. Okay, I might have to swap some overlays around because it does look like these little files or the moving background is too strong for my computer or something. Or I could just like shut off my browser, but then there will be no music and that would kind of suck too. I'm gonna have to like figure out a solution to this because this kind of sucks, not gonna lie. I feel like every single time I stream and I check Task Manager, OBS and like Streamlabs just takes up more and more RAM every single time. And it's becoming a slight problem. As you can see, I'm lagging right now too. Like, this is not supposed to happen. I feel like my computer should be able to run me streaming literally nothing with just like a moving background in the background. But apparently that is too much. Which is a little unfortunate. I was also having issues with Palworld. I was thinking about streaming Palworld, but then I remembered that I had some weird issues with it, which is a slight problem. It honestly made me almost come to the conclusion that maybe I should just stop being a VTuber and just use a web camera. Because I'm pretty sure just using a web camera would be a lot less strenuous on my computer compared to trying to run a face tracker via VTube Studio. It's kind of a pain, not gonna lie. But that'd feel way too weird. If I'm ever gonna do like a face reveal, I'd rather like announce it beforehand and kind of prepare for it, or at least like not do it just cause, if that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe in the future, I'll reconsider. But I mean, I don't know. I like don't really care anymore. But to be honest, I think the people who care the most about whether or not I show my face is my family, because they're very adamant on not wanting my face to be online, which is weird. But I mean, my parents can be pretty traditional. Conservative is probably the better word, actually, now that I think about it. But I mean, the dilemma we have here has not really changed much, which is what the fudge am I gonna do for today? What am I gonna talk about, dude? I have no idea. I mean, for starters, um, yeah, for starters, I guess one thing that I can talk about is I've been making a lot more shorts and stuff to release. So, you know, you guys have stuff to look at if you're not in my streams and whatnot. Oh god, dude, this lag is gonna be an issue. And I don't like it. I might have to consider actually changing the background into the not animated background. Which I guess technically this is still better than the previous speech. I'm not happy about it. I'd rather try and keep things the way that they currently are. We'll see. I'll keep an eye on my stream stuff, and if it continues to be a really big problem, I will real quick change that. Yeah. Okay. Actually, there is a interesting way that I can shift this. My computer has like settings for like low power, like performance and whatnot, and there is a turbo mode that I could turn on, but it'll make my computer way louder. So let's see if it triggers. Let's see if this helps. Oh god. Yeah, no, my computer goes like crazy, dude. We'll see if that actually fixed anything. Well, yeah. I don't like how loud my computer is. Is there a way I can dampen the sound? What if I put like tissue paper over it? I don't think that helped very much. Okay, how about I move a little bit further away? Or move my microphone a little further away? Because that is loud. I don't think I'm having any more issues, funnily enough, though. I think the stream is working a little bit better now that I've begun turbo mode for my computer. Okay, we'll keep it like that, and if that's really annoying, I will swap it back. But, yeah, no. So, I was talking about shorts and stuff, right? Yeah. I've been releasing a lot more shorts recently. We actually have a backlog right now because we said we would, well, I said that I would start releasing one short per stream. We currently have a backlog of around, so it was 2 shorts. I did catch, it used to be a backlog of like 4. We released 2 over the weekend. With this stream, we have a backlog of 3. I'm planning on working on that so that we're all on the same page. But in terms of videos, we have a backlog of 2 right now. Because I did say I wanted to try and make more full videos moving forward. Like 1 video a week, I think I said. And it's... I don't even know how I can describe how I feel in regards to that, or in regards to the whole video making process, because I do have like ideas and stuff that I was planning on, you know, going through with in terms of, you know, making content and stuff. One of the ideas was, let's just talk about Nikke for like 10-20 minutes. Or it was probably gonna be longer, but like edited, cut down, 10-20 minute long video. But the main issue why I haven't done that yet is because there's one particular thing I wanted to talk about. There's one particular event that I wanted to talk about, but I don't have any footage for it. And I could, I guess, go somewhere on YouTube or something. I'm sure there's somebody who has uploaded their footage for the event. But I think I'd rather do my own footage for it, and Nikke doesn't really release their older events until later. So I'm waiting until that event comes around before I can talk about it, because I think that event really does tie into a lot into why I like the game so much, among other events as well. I mean, there's some things about the game that I like more outside of that event, but this particular event makes it really easy for me to explain why I like the game so much, which I think is pretty important from that perspective. But that's not exactly what I was thought. I mean, generally speaking, for the video stuff, we have a backlog of 2 videos. We're supposed to release another this week. So technically right now I should have 3 video ideas, and unfortunately, things just haven't been working out the way that I hoped that they would. Because for example, I was planning on, you know, grabbing some friends to start playing games and then recording it and then editing it down and then posting it. The reason why that hasn't happened is because every time that we've played games, I mostly just wanted to just play. I think I have a different attitude when I record stuff, and I had to make sure everybody else knows that I am recording. And when I'm, you know, it's been a long time since I've met these friends of mine, and we're playing games, and it's like, I don't want to record. I don't want, like, the first time I'm talking with a friend of mine in like months to be me being like, okay, I'm gonna record this, like, be careful with what you say, this is for content. I want to be able to sit down and just play games with my friends without having to worry about that, or having them to worry about it either. So I mean, I do have plans in the future to play games with friends and record at the same time, but that is not something that I currently have or that I have done and can like edit down and release, unfortunately. Or I guess unfortunately for you guys, but fortunately for me, because I had a great time reconnecting with some people, and I have more plans in the next coming few months to meet up with people and play games, and I should be able to record a couple of them after, you know, informing everybody, and then we'll come to a conclusion, and then you guys will see everything that happens from there. Another thing, oh yeah, so I talked about this a little bit in my Discord, but I've been releasing a lot more shorts recently, and my editor has been also uploading those shorts onto TikTok. But what we didn't realize was that apparently TikTok has a way to flag accounts as bots in order to prevent people from flooding the algorithm and trying to like cheat the system. And so basically what that means for me is that the past few shorts that I've been releasing onto TikTok have not been doing well, like, at all, unfortunately. And by that I mean like literal like 0 views, and then I get 1 or 2 views from people who follow me, which is it sucks, just straight up. It sucks. And so I've been scrolling through TikTok for the first time in my entire life in order to try and make TikTok realize, oh, this account is not a bot account, it's an actual account owned by people. We just don't use the account to, you know, to browse the For You page, because my editor has her own she has her own TikTok account, and I have no social media and I have no interest whatsoever in browsing through TikTok. Hence, now I had to spend a few hours for the past few days, like I would say like 30 minutes to an hour a day scrolling through TikTok. And my conclusion is that TikTok is it can be pretty addicting. I can understand why people get sucked into it and spend a lot of time on it. I just don't want to spend my life on social media, like in general, or stuff like TikTok or Instagram in general, just because I'd rather focus on me and the things that are happening right now rather than trying to focus on what other people are up to. That plus there's quite a lot of stuff on TikTok that I really don't give a crap about. And I've noticed TikTok trying to create an algorithm for me, because I would like watch an entire TikTok, like a Valorant TikTok all the way through, and then TikTok would start experimenting. They'd like check out way more Valorant clips at my For You page, and I'd be like, oh, I see. I can kind of see. Every time I watch a TikTok from beginning to end of a certain type, I all of a sudden see like a bunch of other like similar stuff showing up in my feed. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's pretty interesting. But I'm not interested enough in a lot of the stuff that I watch in TikTok. But I mean, I still had to interact. I had to, you know, like videos and favorite videos. I think it's also they want you to comment on stuff, but I don't know how to do that. I just hope that I don't have to do that. Otherwise, I'll probably be spending a little bit more time on that platform, and I'm not very happy about that. I mean, okay, I have found some really cool shorts and stuff that I really liked. I noticed a lot of the stuff that I liked were like music based. Like I would see like really talented people sing something, or like some really interesting mashups, and like that kind of stuff would always be something that I would enjoy just sitting there and watching all the way to the end. And so my algorithm, my feed, has a lot more music stuff, which is really cool for me. I did try and force the algorithm to give me VTuber stuff, not because I like want to just sit there and listen to VTuber like shorts only, but mostly because I am running a VTuber TikTok account, and I am a VTuber, and I have a VTuber YouTube channel, and that it's probably best for me to try and attract or like watch people similar to me, because it's also as a thing that I could kind of take inspiration from, because I live in a world where I have no idea what I'm doing in terms of content creating. I mean, I have an idea now because I've experimented for the past 2 years, and I'm kind of dipping my toe a little bit more in stuff that outside of streaming, which is exciting and scary, but very exciting for me at the very least. And so it's just weird. I'm trying my best to figure things out, but I'm getting there, I think. I hope I am anyways. It has like put a lot of thoughts in my head of like, ah, dang, I wish I could sing as well as these people can, or I wish I was this talented at doing this thing, or I wish I could draw or animate and do things that way. But outside, like, short of commissioning people to do that kind of stuff for me, that's just not really doable. I've always recognized, especially when I started streaming in 2022, and I've done a few karaoke streams that year, that, you know, people have told me they liked my voice, my singing voice, or specifically. And even though streaming pretty much, I never showcased my singing voice anywhere to anybody. It's always been something that I did while I was driving in the car by myself at like 11 p.m. at night, kind of driving home after a long day, or after like a long semester at college, and I was finally getting to drive to my parents' house and relax. And I would sing because it was a good way to stay awake, and you know, it's something I enjoy doing. I picked up the ukulele for a reason. I feel like the ukulele in particular is a singing instrument. It's an instrument that you learn to play and sing with at the same time. You could argue that there are a ton of instruments like that, like piano and guitar, but I think you can make an argument as well that those two instruments you could just play and be good and it won't matter as much. And you could also make the same argument for the ukulele. Like, you can be really, 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 really good at the uke and not have to sing and do well. But I mean, I like the ukulele. I learned how to do some simple songs. I learned how to play, and then I promptly just stopped for a long period of time. But after experimenting singing on streams and stuff and listening to myself, I have concluded that I am not a bad singer. Which is, I think that's pretty good. I think that's not bad. I don't think I could ever gain the confidence without professional voice training or singing lessons or anything. I don't think I'd ever be able to reach the point where I am 100% comfortable singing in front of people and being proud of my singing. Because I don't think there was a single time when I would sing and then showcase it to people where I would be super proud about it. I would always be super embarrassed, or it'd be very meh or something. Yapping stream, very true. I'd be very embarrassed with singing and stuff. And I don't think I'll ever do a karaoke stream anytime soon. Okay, I said ever, but I don't think I'm gonna do a karaoke stream anytime soon. At least, actually, okay. One main reason why I would never sing on stream, at least from here on out, is if you haven't noticed my computer fan. Because every time I speak, you could probably hear it. I don't actually know how well you guys could hear that. It's really loud right now. I could probably tone it down a little. I don't know. I guess it depends on how much of an issue it is, but it's it really ruins some things when it comes to karaoke in general, because if I were to start singing in my microphone and then every single time I open my mouth, you could also hear like that very background whirring of my fan. It's not ideal. It was the same reason why when I was experimenting with ASMR, not that I'd ever actually do ASMR content, just more that I was interested in seeing if I could pull off ASMR and maybe do other things layered on top of it, such as just chatting or like storytelling, that kind of stuff. Because I know a huge portion of ASMR is purposely creating sounds for the purpose of ASMR, such as like brushing or eating, that kind of stuff, or role playing. I think that's a big one too, role playing. I could never do that kind of stuff. There's another VTuber or another friend of mine that streams that I got to know, and he does a lot. Okay, maybe not a lot, but he does do ASMR streams more frequently than just once every blue moon. And I remember I would stop by streams every once in a while just to see what it's like, because I've never really been interested in ASMR, but it's like, my friend's doing it, let's at least see what it's like. And I can't, man. He was doing like a role play, like clingy boyfriend thing in his stream, and I saw people in his chat were like, oh, that's so hot, and I'm like, just not for me. Not for me. And I don't think I could pull it off either. I can kind of understand why people would like that kind of content. And if I could do it well enough where people would enjoy listening to it, I'd be down to try. I just can't pull anything super audiophile like stuff, such as singing or ASMR or anything that requires me to have very crisp sound, because A, my fan in the background, and B, my microphone isn't that great, unfortunately. I think it would be really... Okay. Yeah, I think one of the things I really want to invest into when it comes to streaming is a new microphone, like an XLR microphone, not just a nice USB microphone, because I currently have an Elgato Wave 3, which I think is probably as nice of a USB microphone as you can get without going too hard. Because there are definitely more expensive microphones and there are definitely better microphones. I just think this was a relatively within my budget microphone that's really good at what it does, in my opinion. I could be completely wrong and people could just be like, oh my god, you have no idea what you're talking about. And you're right, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's just from what little research I did, this seemed like the best option. Plus it was on sale, so I saved money on it too. But things are hard. Also, sorry, Vision. I mean, I know I noted your message, but I probably should have said hi rather than just commenting on what you said. But yeah, hi Vision. uh, I have been lurking a lot more in different like smaller streamers' streams, and I have been letting them know that I'm lurking. And I will say it is pretty nice to see them react happily, because it's like, oh, it's been a while, Sai, like how you doing, like, and all that. And I was like, I don't feel like responding. I'm lurking for a reason. I don't want to type in chat, because the instant I type 1 or 2 messages, I'll start typing more, and I don't want to do that. Sometimes, some days I just want to chill with something in the background, or like seeing what people are up to, and that's fine for me. I'm just focusing on parkour. I don't hurt yourself. I don't know if it's real parkour or like a game. I assume it's a game. But if it's not, don't hurt yourself. And if it is, just good luck. Thumbs up. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've done a legitimate just chatting stream. Every time I want to just talk about crap, I just pull up Minecraft and I start digging a tunnel. Because it gives me something to focus on. But like, just sitting here, looking at my computer, and just being free to talk about whatever the heck I want to, it feels really weird. And I remember now why I don't do just chatting streams very often. And it's because it's hard to just talk. It is pretty difficult to just talk on my own. Not to pressure anybody if there's any other lurkers. But it can be pretty difficult to just talk. And so I'm glad that I do have a couple of things that I prepared that I could talk about for a bit. Unfortunately, I don't know how long I can yap for just on my own, but I will try my best. But for those of you who don't know, I am a huge web novel, light novel, manga reader, like huge. I don't watch anime anymore. I went through my anime phase a long time ago, like legitimate, like 10 years ago. But once I hit college, I pretty much just stopped. Okay, me saying 10 years ago and then saying me hitting college makes me sound like I'm freaking 30. Let me rephrase this. I started watching anime like over 10 years ago, and I watched anime all the way up until college, which was around 2018-ish is when I started college. And as soon as I hit college, I pretty much just stopped watching anime because I just didn't really have the time. More like, I did have free time to watch anime. I just didn't want to use that free time for anime because I had less free time. And I constantly had people around me. If I wanted to hang out with a friend, I would just leave my room and then knock on their door. I would walk like 5 minutes and then knock on their door and then be like, hey, let's play Smash or something. And they'd be like, cool. And then we would play some Smash. And it was just way more interesting for me to actually go out and play billiards or go out and do things with people physically, or like play games LAN, because that's something that I knew I wasn't going to be able to do for the rest of my life or have access to. That I just prefer to do things with people, and if I was going to do something on my own, I'd rather just read, because it was a lot more chill than to watch anime, at least in my opinion. And so I just stopped watching anime, and I've yet to actually watch anything. Okay, that's not necessarily true. There's some specific titles that I do like keeping up with because the manga isn't getting translated as quickly as the anime is releasing. One example of that is Overlord. Overlord is probably one of my favorites isekai. Like, yeah, it's probably one of my favorite isekai media. overall, just because of how different it is from other stuff and how it is. If you don't know what Overlord is, you should check it out. And I've been reading the manga, but the anime goes further than the translated manga, unfortunately. So I remember when a new season came out, like my sophomore, junior year of college, I was like, you know what? Let's watch it. Let's watch it. I'm not going to be able to get access to what happens here just by reading, and I really am interested to see what happens next. So let's just watch it. Another thing with, all right, same thing happened with Danmachi, which is, what the fudge was it called in English? How do you pick up girls in a dungeon? Or is it okay to pick up girls in a dungeon or something? It's not even like my favorite anime or like a super good anime. It's just fun. And seeing that when I was reading the manga, it wasn't that far. But then they made a second season to it, and I was like, oh, this goes further than the manga. I was like, all right, let's watch it. It's actually funny because after the first season aired, the manga, or the translated manga, was slowly catching up to the first season. And when it finally caught up and was slightly surpassing the first season, they released the second season. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just watch that instead. But I have not been watching anime pretty much at all. And I'm a huge web novel, light novel reader. And one of the things I wanted to talk about actually is one of the web novels that I've been following for like 4+ years, like a very long, maybe not 4+, but like 3+ years, ended recently. Because when I read web novels and light novels and stuff, if I read a light novel, I know it's probably gonna end. If it does end, and if it doesn't, I know that they're going to be proper arcs and like things are going to be scheduled and set up in like a little bit more of a professional manner compared to web novels. Because web novels, like they're pretty much just fanfics, or like anybody can write a web novel and just post it. And I've read some really crappy web novels out there that yeah. But I think I can give an example of this. Not like a really bad web novel, but like a web novel versus light novel thing. Because light novels are actually like published and they're taken up by companies and stuff. So there was one light novel that I was reading was Grimgar. Because the anime release, while I was still watching anime, and I remember watching it and being like, dang, I really enjoyed that. I wish there was more. And then they never released the second season. So I was like, you know what? I'll just read the manga. But the manga like has nothing to it. Like literally like a few chapters that were translated into English. And I was like, frick. So then I try to look for the novel and you can't find, or you have to pretty much like buy those. So I was like, all right, fine. And I managed to get my hands on Grimgar, and I've been reading that, and I have been enjoying it a lot. I really like Grimgar. Quite a few things happen in it that I didn't expect, and I wasn't sure if I liked the direction of it, but I still enjoyed reading it overall, because they're like proper arcs, everything's labeled in different volumes, everything's very solid. But if you take like fanfics and novels and stuff, those things can either be like 4 chapters long, or they can be like 50 million chapters long. Maybe not actually 50 million, but you get the idea. Actually, yeah, there's the type of web novels that are very much in line with that are like wuxia. Yeah, Xuanyuan and like wuxia novels. Those are like Chinese cultivation novels. Not like farming cultivation, but how do I explain like Chinese cultivation stuff to somebody who doesn't know what that is? It's like, it's very much like a Munchkin type of thing, I feel, where the character starts off super weak, but they slowly just get super overpowered over time, because that's just how like the power system works. And like the power system is very like, it's very rigid, if that makes sense. Like there are levels And if like say there's like levels 1 through 9, and as a character, if your strength level is in level 4 or level 5, you should not be able to beat like or fight people who are like 1 level above you. So you're like level 4. If you fight somebody who is level 5, you should get demolished. You should get destroyed. But the main character is always this like overpowered person that people underestimate in these kind of cultivation novels. And they're like, oh, they're only level 2. As a level 4, you have to bow down and lick my shoes. And then the main character is like, not this time, and like punches them, and everybody gets really excited. It's like, wow, he's so strong. And then like all these like elders, like level 7s or 8s, are just like, he's very interesting. And then they start like keeping tabs on the main character, and a bunch of other stuff happens. But it's like the biggest like power creep based thing ever, and I freaking love them. Especially when I first started reading web novels, I was so deep into a bunch of these type of stuff. I was in like chapter 2000 something with one. I was in chapter 1200 on another. I was super deep in them. I love them because they were just like power fantasies essentially. And as long as they were written well and the characters were written well, I enjoyed them. Even though a lot of the plot points and a lot of the stuff in them probably weren't objectively good, especially after reading them 500, 600, 700 chapters. A lot of arcs were kind of copy pasted with just different names of people and characters and groups of people and organizations and stuff. But I still really enjoyed reading them. They were just like the type of thing I could read by like turning my brain off and just being like, yep, he punched that guy. Yep. Oh, he's losing, but don't worry, he's gonna win because he's gonna gain just a random Deus Ex Machina will come up out of nowhere or something. Oh, yep, there he goes. Very predictable, and I think that's why I stopped reading them like entirely. But because I feel like once you read like 2 or 3, you've read pretty much all of them, and there's very few that break the mold. But to be fair, I do think breaking the common tropes that go into those that novel idea probably won't work super well for you, because they work because it makes sense, and a lot of the stuff just makes sense and it feels good. Oh, like the main character is getting bullied by these 2 really mean people who are like a level higher than he is. Well, he gains this like some random like powerful MacGuffin or Deus Ex Machina that lets him overpower people like 2 levels higher than him, and so he can start beating the bullies back. And then you get to watch him just like stomp their faces in, and you just feel good. You just get to feel redemption, even though it's not you, but it's just cool. I don't know. I just like power fantasies, I guess. I really like trashy stuff too. Which I guess maybe it's too far to say I like trashy stuff, and more like I don't mind them. And then sometimes trashy stuff can be really funny. The big thing for me, I've noticed recently when reading a lot of web novels and light novels and stuff, is what I care about the most is how it's written. Like if it's written well, then you can sell me on anything. No matter how garbage the characters, okay, maybe not no matter, but if the characters and the plot is like garbage, I would have a higher chance of sticking with something if it's well written compared to something with like a really good plot but is terribly written. Whether that be like bad translation or the author doesn't know how to explain certain things, so they use bad examples or similes or whatnot, or they only use examples or similes or comparison points, and that gets pretty annoying too. But if something's well written, I'd always be down to try reading it like some more. And the novel that I was talking about that finished recently is this web novel that's been going on for like years and years, and I started following it like pretty much like almost right at the beginning. And I remember I was really intrigued by the whole idea of it. It's called frick, what was the full name of it? I know it's on my phone. because when I finished it, I immediately wrote it down so that I wouldn't forget for moments just like this one. Little Tyrant doesn't want to meet a bad end. That's what it's called. Because the main character, bleh, my voice. The main character is isekai'd. They are reincarnated into another world, but it's a world that they are well aware of, and they know how it works. And they know that the character that they've reincarnated as is like a tyrant that everybody freaking hates. And they usually have a bunch of bad like death flags where they just freaking die in a bunch of different scenarios. And so the reason why it's called Little Tyrant doesn't want to meet a bad end is he decides, screw it, I just want to live. And he does his best to try and survive. Even though like he meets like the actual main character or the quote unquote main character of the isekai and whatnot. And then he meets a bunch of characters. It's a harem, which is probably something that I feel a little embarrassed about. But one of my biggest pet peeves with harems are two things. And one of them is character development and like characterization. Because when you have a big cast of female characters, and the idea of a harem is to have, or not just female, I guess, because I've read reverse harems as well, but like it's to have a big cast of characters like one character. And so sometimes the focus is less on the character themselves and more on the focus that, oh, this, you just have to know that this character likes this character with, you know, these general tropes. If you've ever watched a anime, like any like 2000 mid 2000s anime that was a harem, stuff like To Love Ru, Infinite Stratos, there's so many. I can't remember them all. I think you've seen, I think you guys know what I'm talking about though. They tend to have very stereotypical tropish characters. Like all the characters have to have different hair color. One character, if it's like a female harem, like one character has to be the tsundere, one character has to be the kudere, one character has, you know, like there's all those tropes. And if it's a male harem, like one character has to be like the dark, brooding, edgy one. One character has to be like the really happy-go-lucky one. One of them has to be kind of childish, you know. There's always like tropes intertwined with the characters involved in a harem, and usually it doesn't go much further past the trope. If you've watched, I think Infinite Stratos is a very good example of this, and also a good example of a terrible protagonist as well. That anime freaking sucks. But it was like the perfect example of characters that were lined up with their the trope that the author gave them, and that's as far as our character goes. But the reason why I really liked Little Tyrant, or it's called LTBE, or Little Tyrant Bad End. Little Tyrant doesn't want to meet a bad end. The reason why I really liked LTBE was because even though it's a harem, first and foremost, the whole premise of the story did not revolve around the harem, like pretty much at all. The romances and like the characters falling for the main character was never like a thing that they had to stop the story in order to dwell on. It was always like a romantic subplot as the main story went on. And let me tell you, I really enjoyed the main story of this particular story. And I would love to tell you about it, except because I've been reading it over the past like 3-4 years, I cannot in good faith try and explain this story without spoiling anything. Because all my memory is more on the more recent stuff, and I'm not gonna lie to you, a lot of the beginning events that happened in the first few chapters of the story I barely remember. Like if you were to mention it, I would be like, oh yeah, I do remember that happening, but I could not try and summarize it and like say it out loud without spoiling anything, because I honestly don't remember what would be considered a spoiler anymore. But I did like it a lot, despite it being a harem. And actually, so another thing is that whenever I see harem as a tag for anything, like anime or a novel or a manga, harem to me is like comedy, which is why I don't stray away from harems. And in fact, if I ever were to see a harem, if I'm in the mood of a comedy, I would be like, sure, I'd let me see what it's like. Because I think the whole premise of a harem has to be seeped into a comedy. Otherwise, it'll be too sad and too depressing and too broken because of the way that romance generally works. And then if it's written well enough, then at the end of everything, then maybe the main character chooses one like romantic interest, and then you kind of, you know, see how things are, and then you move on. I think a very interesting way that one story ended was Bokuben, which is like we can't study. Oh, Boku tachi ga benkyou ga dekinai. I think it's an anime too. I don't know. No, it is an anime. I remember people talking about it. But I like read the manga, and the way they ended it was really interesting because there's like all these characters that like the main character, but the way they ended it was there's just a bunch of different small stories of what would happen if the main character were to get together with each of the characters, like with each of the romantic potential, like romantic interests. And then they ended it with like, what happens next? Like, who does he actually get with? You decide. And then there was Goltobun, or the quintessential quintuplets, I think the anime is called. Where they had a canon ending, like they had a canon girl that the main character gets with, but the author for the manga released an extra volume which showcased a what if scenario if the main character got together with the other girls. But there's still a canon girl, and unfortunately the girl I wanted didn't win. Sad. And I probably shouldn't say anything else in case you're still watching or reading it, and I don't want to unleash any spoilers accidentally. Except that I guess at that point that wouldn't be very accidental, huh? But yeah, whenever I see harem, I always expect comedy to be a part of it. Which is why I've always thought reverse harems are like not as interesting to me, because stuff like frick, what was that one anime manga that came out? It was like this princess girl that had like red hair, and like she had to like escape the castle, and she became a not princess, and she like struggled to adapt while she like slowly gathered a bunch of super hot ikemens. I feel like a lot of more reverse harems tend to be more brooding and serious. I guess it's to ignite the shoujo like romantic fantasy of like all these like pretty boys like reaching out for the main character, and there's less space for comedy and more for drama, or like those like special moments, which I understand why people enjoy those. Again, the anime slash manga that I was trying to remember what it's called from earlier. I did watch that anime, and I remember I did enjoy it. But generally speaking, like the like love triangle harem stuff, when they're not like trying to push or focus a lot on the dramatic portions and the realistic implications of what happens when multiple characters like one character romantically. From a comedy perspective, they're very, very fun and interesting. And I think I heard this got an anime. I think a very, very good example of this, and like the perfect example for a harem for me, is the 100 Girlfriends That Really Love You, or That Really Like You, Really Love You. I don't know which one it is. But that one is like the perfect example of a harem for me, because all the characters are characterized like surprisingly well. Like every single character gets their own screen time, and when a character is introduced, they're not forgotten. Like they're not just shoved to the side and forgotten. Like you see all the girls in that manga a lot. You see a lot of them all the time, pretty much. And it's such a funny manga, dude. The way they do things, like, and it's just really fun. It's really fun. It's funny. Like the characters are well characterized, surprisingly. and it's like the perfect harem, or the way that I see it, the perfect harem. Kind of on the flip side of that, I really liked Shuffle, which is another harem, but it, and while I mean it is comedy and it kind of portrays itself as a comedy when you first start watching it, and it kind of looks like a very stereotypical harem. It's like surprisingly real, or not like realistic because there are demons and crap and like angels and whatnot, but it does kind of explore the hurt that can happen when a character just has to choose one character, and like all the characters were well characterized. I mean, it's not my favorite anime. I don't even know if I would put in like a top 10, top 50 list, but I still enjoyed it a lot. It's up there for harems that I've watched. I feel like this is a real degenerate topic for me to talk about, which is freaking harems and novels and crap. But I mean, I guess it's better to talk about harems than it is to talk about like yaoi, which is something that I have a lot of. Let me be really careful with how I word this, because I was about to say it's a topic that I have a lot of experience with, and I was like, okay, wait, that makes it sound like I'm really like BL, or I am into BL personally, and that's not the case. I have talked about yaoi a lot on my stream, to the point where it was almost a part of my branding when I first started streaming. I think I've talked enough about it as well, so that I will skirt away from that conversation. I have been struggling recently to find any new interesting novels that I could get into, unfortunately. I guess part of it is because of how I look for stuff. Because I go to novel updates and then I pick a genre tag and then I just see what's been recently updated rather than trying to look for stuff that is completed. I don't know why I tend to look for stuff that's more recently updated, but that's just how I've been searching stuff. And usually I just like pick a genre based off of how I feel. So some days I'm like, I feel like some shonen stuff, let's pick action. Or I feel like, I feel like seeing some romantic stuff, let's pick romance. Oh, I feel like laughing a bit, let's pick comedy today. And then I just scroll through and I pick out like 2 or 3 different novels that catch my eye, and then I try them out, and if I don't like them, I drop. If I do like it, I stick around until I stop liking them, or until I realize that they will never be finished, and then I drop them. Which is unfortunate. It is how that is. And I've been struggling to find new stuff, and as a result, I've been finding myself sticking a lot more with certain translation sites for like light novels or web novels that are in Japanese that are getting translated into English. Because there's a ton of translation sites that do a really bad job translating. And when I first started getting into web novels, I didn't mind bad translation as much as I do now. I think it's because I've been reading so many so frequently that I've been caring too much about it, to the point where I can't read anything that doesn't have at least decent grammar and is written decently, like, well, and is not absolute freaking garbage. And as a result of that, I am put in a very interesting spot. Alright, that's why my voice faded away a little more. Like for example, there is a translation site called Genesis. Genesis Translations, I think it's called. I'll have to double check on that. But they typically have a very, very good quality translations for the stuff that they pick out. But part of the problem I have with Genesis is a lot of the stuff that they have are yandere, or like harem focused. And let me tell you, yandere is not a tag that I am particularly keen on. Rather, I don't like yanderes that much. I think the concept of a yandere is kind of interesting from a storytelling perspective. Like the idea of a character that is so obsessed with another character to the point where they're willing to like kill or, you know, remove obstacles, or they just get that obsessive. I think there are some very interesting avenues for storytelling with a yandere. Whether it be like you go for more for a psychological angle, you can even go for like a murder mystery angle. I always thought like as a concept, yandere is very interesting, but when people in practice, a lot of people are a lot more interested in trying to put self-insert fantasies, like, oh, I wish I had a yandere or something. Like, let me try and romanticize the idea of a yandere, which I think is not okay. I don't think the yandere, generally speaking, should win, and if they do, it should be because they're in a healthy state to be okay in. If you've seen School Days, that's a pretty good example of, you know, of something that shows that when a yandere wins, like, maybe not everybody else is happy and also wins. Usually it's like a win-lose if a yandere wins, unless the main character is super into it, in which case I don't know what to say. Good for that guy, but not for me. I think I'm more off-put by a main character who is into a yandere that pursues the main character and kills for the main character, or even stabs the main character themselves, and he's just like, hey, I'm into this. And you might be wondering, like, oh, what the like, who would write that kind of stuff? But you'd be surprised. People have written a lot of stuff about a lot of different topics and tags and tropes, and I've read them all. Okay, not all, but I have read some really trashy stuff over the past few years, all for the sake of trying to look for good stuff. But yeah, no, yandere is one of those tags and like type of character where I'm like, yeah, I think it could be interesting, but I've yet to see one that genuinely is interesting. Oh no, that's not true. There is a yandere, or it's not a yandere based novel, but it is a novel with probably one of the biggest yanderes I've ever seen. But it's also one of my favorite web novels that I've ever read. And like the fact that I get a chance to talk about it is like makes me feel really happy, because I don't think I've ever talked about it. It's also a webtoon, I think. I've never I never read the webtoon. It's called House of Horrors. And it's kind of like a weird, if you know what like a lit RPG is, or if you've seen like any of those like game system status window, like in the real, like urban status window stuff, where like you're in the real world but you get a status window, you can like you get like quests in the real world, and you can start inputting your stats into stuff, that kind of stuff, because that's pretty popular in some forms of media. I think I've seen a lot of Korean webtoons do that. House of Horrors does this, but the status window is focused on a haunted house in a world where ghosts and like serial killers and stuff, all that like legitimately exists. And the main character, in order to like, because their haunted house was doing really badly, but in order to get their haunted house to do very well, in order for them to make a living, but also for them to live, because who knew that apparently ghosts can be pretty dangerous, they like find a bunch of different horror scenarios that occur in the city that they live in, and then they try and solve them or try and fix like what transgressions that happened in order to like recruit these ghosts into his haunted house. And it's really interesting. One of the ghosts that haunts him ends up being like this like huge yandere that like literally kills for him, and it's like one of the biggest deus ex machinas I've ever seen, because it's like a really strong ghost that essentially whenever he struggles with a ghost that's super strong, this ghost girl just appears and kills it and then just leaves with a teehee. But it's like genuinely terrifying. Like, she is genuinely terrifying. I saw a picture of her in the webtoon and she looked a lot hotter than I thought she would be, because I expected her to be like a hot chick but dead. like a legitimate like zombie or ghost, but no, she looked a lot more appealing than I thought she would when I saw a picture of her from the webtoon. But she's like, in the novel, she's genuinely terrifying because she's pretty much like a ticking time bomb that the main character has to constantly placate or placate. I don't know how to say that word. Like essentially like he has to satisfy her by like giving her presents, by like complimenting her. Because sometimes he like gets himself in positions where she's literally about to kill him because she pretty much wants to kill him actually, because if she kills him then he becomes a ghost and they can be together forever. But he wants to live, and so he's trying to like stay alive while also trying to keep this ghost around him. And it's actually really interesting how, I mean, the dynamic between those two particular characters isn't like the main focus of House of Horrors, but it is like a very interesting dynamic that is there throughout. Like I'm on chapter like 800 or something, 600, 800. I'll have to double check, but and I'm still like reading through it, and I still really enjoy it. I'm really surprised how much I enjoy it. It is like one of the few horror based web novels that I've read and genuinely enjoy. If you guys don't know, I'm not scared easily, and when I am scared, usually my reaction is more to like freeze up and flinch over like scream or anything. And when I read stuff, I can be pretty disconnected from the things with the sort of media that I consume, and I never really feel scared when I read. So I like read a bunch of horror stuff when I was in like elementary school, and I was like, none of this is really scary to me. But House of Horror is probably one of the first pieces of media, like horror media, that I've ever read and consumed that I genuinely felt goosebumps from. It wasn't just like let me just get these ghosts and get stronger and like just kind of power creep everything and like nothing is ever scary. Like it's genuinely creepy. And I've never felt as creeped out as I did from reading House of Horror. And so I never even thought I was going to talk about it today, but it is genuinely a very, very interesting novel, and I highly recommend it to anyone who would be interested in reading such a web novel, like a horror web novel that is genuinely kind of scary, like actually, and pretty like just fun to read overall. I really enjoyed reading it. I can't believe I like talk about Yandere and then I went to House of Horror. One of my least favorite tags to like one of my favorite like novels I've ever read. Or one of my favorite web novels I've ever read. I should probably distinguish that. And I must say it's a very interesting life being a web light novel reader, because when I read a lot on my phone, because you know they're web novels, that's kind of the point of them. And so when people like see me reading, they're like, "Oh, what are you reading?" And I'm like, you know, web novels and stuff. They're like, "Oh, so like, well, what's a web novel?" I'm like, if you know what like a fan fiction is, it's like stories that people just post on the internet that anyone can read. They're like, "Oh, so you're like super into fanfics." And it's way more embarrassing to admit that you read a lot of like web novels and fan fictions and stuff over you saying stuff like when I was in middle school and I told people I read like Rick Riordan stuff, like Lightning Thief, or like Maze Runner, or I know Maze Runner's not Rick Riordan, but I mean like as an example, like I'd feel pretty good. Like I'd be like, yeah, I read this. Did you read it? You did? Oh, I love this book so much, you know? When I read web novels and I tell people the titles of the stuff that I read, first off, chances of them ever even heard of it is like 0, like 0.001. And 2, because they don't know what I'm talking about, their image immediately goes, oh, he reads like fan fiction. And that's like an image that I don't really read fan fiction. Not really. A lot of the stuff that I read are original stories. I have seen some very funny concepts though in terms of fan fiction. I don't really like fan fiction much. I used to read a little bit back in middle school, and I will say one of my favorite bits of fan fiction was Sherlock Holmes x Watson, but but I think fan fictions can be really cool because they can add on to stories and like give people who enjoy the media that they consume like a way to further enjoy such media. I personally just can't get behind fan service, or I was about to say fan service. What's wrong with me? I personally can't get behind stuff like fan fiction because in my head when I read something or consume media or like a story or something, that's how the story is. And if it's unfinished, like the author will finish it eventually, unless it's Hunter x Hunter, but or Berserk. But if it's something that just is and it finishes nicely and then people start making fanfics over it of like their own ways that the story could be interpreted, or if the character ends up being in a relationship that they didn't want them to be and they're shipping something else and they throw something else, or they do dojins, I guess, which I've never really gotten into because dojins are basically just prawn. It doesn't feel as genuine to me, and it almost feels like my perception of that particular piece of media is getting ruined. Like, I've seen some like Pokemon fanfics where people would self-insert their characters into the Pokemon world. I think that's okay, because I think a fanfic off of a world is one thing, but when they start including the actual characters and stuff, like I saw a fanfic for Harry Potter where they self-inserted, or the author self-inserted themselves into Hogwarts, and like they would essentially just make these huge changes to how the actual story of Harry Potter went. And let me tell you firsthand that I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan, but the fact that they kind of just like changed a bunch of things so that they could put themselves in, and even if it was like really well written and everything was really interesting, in my head, like Harry Potter was like the movies, you know? That's how all the events turned out. And if they change it like that, it just feels weird. And I don't really like it as much. But I do get the appeal of fanfic. I'm just not a huge fan of it unless I like read them on like super ironically, like Sherlock Holmes x Watson. Gosh dang, that was a good one. But yeah, no. I don't really have favorite tags either, or like favorite genres. It's probably a better way to put it, because I recently learned when people talk about tags, they talk about like prawn tags. But I kind of read whatever, and there's a lot of different stuff that I read. I mean, I'm reading like one or two harem romance comedy stuff right now. I'm reading quite a few isekais because I think trashy isekais are terrible and great at the same time, and I love them and hate them, and because I love them and hate them, I read a bunch of them, and I've seen some crazy freaking isekais, some that are genuinely interesting, some that are like copy paste of a bunch of tropes, and it's like, you know what, all right, you do you. But yeah, no, I don't have really I mean, I do have like a list of just like genres that I tend towards or gravitate towards, such as like action. I think psychological is pretty interesting when it's done well. I think stuff like horror and psychological stuff has the biggest ratio of like really bad to really good. There's rarely anything that's like in the middle, because you know, they either freaking screw it up super badly and it's terrible, or they pretty much write it like almost perfectly and everything makes sense, and I just loved it. Same with mystery, although actually, you know, there are surprisingly a lot of light novels and web novels that are supposed to feature a main character that is super freaking smart, and the whole shtick is that this character is super smart. Watch this character come by very challenging puzzles or challenges and stuff, and how they outwit and outsmart the opposition. some of them work out really well and are really cool, and like it genuinely makes you think, dang, like that's a really interesting, like out of pocket way to solve that problem. And then other times it's just like other times the character's they're not that smart. The writer just gives them information and they just magic it out of their head. Like, oh, I realized something. I realized that like history, all this like random bull crap, and it's like, yes, I now understand the weak point of this enemy or something. It's like, oh, you're not smart, or you're not actually smart. Your author's smart. The author just tells you what he wants you to know, and that's always a really big disappointment. I think actually another thing I see a lot are like smart characters that get dumbed down over time. Like the focus on them being a genius is really high at the beginning, but over the course of the story, they get dumber. Or like their ability to be smart regresses over time somehow, and then they become just like the reputation of being smart is a lot larger than them actually being really intelligent, which is unfortunate. There is one novel that I read that really aligns with this pretty well, and I can't freaking remember what it's called. I think it's like Dungeon Keeper. Maybe no, that sounds like a freaking video game. Yeah, that sounds like a video game I played. It probably is a video game I played. There's like a web novel and a light novel version because the author started off as a web novel and then they got serialized into a light novel. And then I forgot which one it was, but one of them was like the main character was really smart and like it was really cool, and then later they just like they dumbed it down and it was really sad. He just became like this cruel like murder hobo that kills everything, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of disappointing. What are like other tropes in media and stuff? Like did types, I guess, for anime and whatnot. I mean, I talked about yanderes. I still stand by that. I think yandere is probably like the conceptually the most interesting did type, but they're very rarely written well. I think tsunderes can be very interesting. I've talked about tsunderes a lot, dude. The whole idea of a tsundere is like, I think one person explained it to me as like hot and cold, but the way I see it is more just like as a freaking brat who has trouble expressing their feelings about X character or X person, and as a result, like they just kind of like things just don't work out very well. I think the best kind of tsunderes grow as characters. Like they recognize their flaws and are like, oh frick, like I hate how whenever I'm around the people that I enjoy being around, I end up pushing them away because of my pride, or like I have like all these issues I want to get over, and they make like a genuine effort to better themselves. And sure, like it's not gonna be overnight, they're just gonna be did it. Like that's not how that works. But like over time you see the character, despite, you know, still being like spicy, I guess, they have that spice to their character. They won't be actively like pushing away the characters that they do enjoy being around, but rather they learn to try and balance it a little bit and still show affection when they realize they need to. There is this novel that I've been reading quite recently actually, and it's relatively new. There's only like 30 chapters, or like, yeah, there's only 30 chapters in this web novel. It's called I have it here, give me a second. It's where is it? I Saved the Villain, I think it's called. It's on Rai Translations, or that's like the site. That's what the site is called. But the whole premise of it is like I can actually talk about the summary of this too, or like the general summary of this, because I'm also like getting into it. But the whole premise of this story is that the main character is a villain, and then he gets essentially like he's upset that he's a villain, but like he's not upset necessarily. He's like this huge villain, and he like does a bunch of terrible things. But then like he meets a hero that he genuinely admires. Like he meets a hero that's like as heroic of a hero as you can think of. And he realizes that like he's seen a bunch of trashy heroes, like heroes that are only heroes for their own sake. Like it's a superhero kind of novel. But he meets like a genuine hero for the first time, and he's like, you know what? I want to be like that. And as he's about to die, he gets transported to like 3 years before he became a villain, when he was just like a civilian, essentially. And so he decides to try and become a better person, and like try and be as heroic as the hero that he met. And so he starts up a restaurant that just like serves free food to people who can't afford it, which doesn't really make sense in hindsight, because like how the heck does he fund it? But he has like ways of explaining how he funds it, and I'm like waiting to see how they further explain it. But through this period of time, he meets another huge villain, like in the future. Like when he was a huge villain, this person was also a huge villain. And he was like, oh, she's just like a girl, like a middle schooler that is struggling through life. Like she's clearly like having a bad time. So he reaches out and like gets to know her. And this girl, whose pretty much life has just been stomping her throughout her entire life, is very cautious around people. So when he reaches out, she essentially just pushes him away. And like over the course of like a few like chapters, he slowly manages to get her attention, and he like basically hires her for the restaurant because she needs to make money, and like she has a bunch of other problems. And over the course of like a few months in the story, she slowly starts to get a lot closer to him, but she makes very clear boundaries with him. He's like, I'm never gonna like you. I'm scared of men. Like men terrify me because of all like this trauma that I have. So never fall in love with me. And he's like, okay, I will not. And so over the course of this period of time, like she is never shows like any visible affection to him. Like she's always like hard to him. She's always like making fun of him, and he's like being as nice as he can. Like he doesn't understand why she's always mean to him, but he does his best to just be as unconditional and as like kind as he can to her. And she's always just pushing him away constantly. She is like making fun of him. She's like constant, like I would say tease, except it's never like the way she teases him is never in good faith. It's always like very cruel and mean and just like not good. And she's constantly pushing him away, but she does appreciate him. She just has a lot of problems with trying to express herself towards him. And eventually the main character, it all culminates to this one moment where the main character tries to do this one really kind act to her, and she essentially just pushes him away. And like the day is like completely ruined for him and her, because she's like, I did not want things to turn out the way that they did. But essentially like he walks away completely heartbroken, and she is upset with herself for acting the way that she did. And eventually the main character, who's like heartbroken, comes across a hero, the same hero that he was inspired by to be kind in the first place. And they kind of meet each other, and they, you know, like they get to know each other and whatnot. And the other girl, the villain, or the current like tsundere villain, she starts feeling jealous. She's like, oh, like why the heck is he focusing on her and not me? Like I want him to compliment me and like be nice to me only. And then she starts realizing that the way she's been treating him was not okay. She's been way too darn mean to him and whatnot. And so she starts trying to actually like change herself, but it's not an easy process. She's still like really hard-headed. She's still being really mean to him sometimes. But like that's the kind of tsundere that I want to see, right? I want to see a tsundere where they realize, where they are like mean, but they have these like thoughts that are like really kind, or not like kind, but they do have good intentions. It's just they can't express themselves very well, and like for good reason, for example. But they genuinely try to get over the tsun part of it and into the dere part, you know? They genuinely try to overcome. But a lot of tsunderes I see in media nowadays, they freaking it's all like a gag, you know? How often have you seen like a tsundere who gets really upset at like the main character and like just like punch them across the room or like the classroom, and they're just like lying on the ground and everyone's laughing, and like it's supposed to be like this really funny moment, and this never changes. This character never changes from this. This is particularly prevalent, I've noticed, in harems, because harems never do character development. Okay, not never, but low quality harems like rarely do character development, and so it's always slapstick comedy with the tsundere, where they never grow. They are always the same way, and every single time they do have a dere moment, kind like quote unquote moment, it's immediately ruined by like someone like by like the wind blowing, and then you see an upskirt shot, and then they go kya and then slap the main character into next week or something. It's really annoying, actually. Like you kind of like throw away a lot of stuff just for the punchline, the literal punchline, and that's not very interesting to me, to say the very least. I want to see a tsundere character like Taiga from Toradora, or I think Luna from this novel that I was talking about. I Saved the Villain, I think is what you know, let me actually look up what it's called. I have it in my phone because I've been reading it. And so that I can actually like tell you what the fudge it's called. Ah, frick, I accidentally just opened it. I tapped an ad and I'm sad. I Became a Villain's Hero. That's what it's called. It's called I Became a Villain's Hero. He sure did. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I really like characters. Like the big driving point of why I like reading media or like consuming media and like seeing all these stories is seeing character development, and seeing a story filled with characters that just don't develop, especially when one character has like a very, very obvious flaw and they just decide it's fine to have, that's just kind of annoying. Like tsunderes, they don't tend to look at their tsun and be like, this is a problem. Like I need to learn how to be more affectionate to the people I like. Instead, they're fine with being more on the prideful side of things and like, you know, making a mess. And I understand that people are like, yeah, but that's the whole point. Like it's so that when they do kind of like do the upturn eyes and be like, oh, I guess I do like you, and have those moments that they like hit harder. And I agree with you that they do hit harder, but usually there's no like full on character development because they hit that data point and then they go back to the tsun. Like the data point never happened at all. I think that's lame. I think that's just lame. I'll be honest with you. I think that's lame. I think they should still be prideful about stuff, but there should still be some like improvement in their relationships with people, because that's how that works. You recognize that I am super prideful and very embarrassed about something, but I still want to, you know, be affectionate and show how much I appreciate people. This is a crazy tangent, by the way. I've talked about this before too, but this is a crazy tangent. I guess you could also argue that like that's not necessarily the definition of a tsundere, but I don't know. That's just how I feel. What other like popular dere types are there? There's the kudere. I really like kuderes. I'm a huge romance guy, or I used to be. I still am, but not as much as I used to be because I used to read a ton of romance stuff. And there's just something about like a character who is just like very logical, or this character that rarely shows their emotions, who's like that cool-headed like beauty, I guess, who like only shows their like affectionate side towards the people they feel affectionate towards. There's just something genuinely interesting there for me. I don't know why I like that so much. I just do. I just think that's really appealing, and I don't know why. Maybe that's because it hits too close to home, because I can kind of be like that or I used to kind of be like that. Not as much these days. I remember I had like 2 years ago, I was talking with Haru about Dede types, and we were guessing each other's like Dede type, like what is the closest Dede type that we think we each other are. So I said, Haru, you are a yandere. And he was like, shut up, I'll kill you. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I actually, no. I think yandere, from like a content, or like from like a personality perspective, from like how we interacted, suited him very well. But if I actually had to genuinely pick a Dede type for him, I don't freaking know. I'd have to see a list of Dede types actually, so that before I could start trying to pinpoint that. But he told me he thought I would be like Dede. Is it Dede? Something like that. I don't remember what he said for me actually. He said like I was the kind of person who would be very straightforward with how I feel towards people, which is true. But also, I guess maybe he didn't realize that I'm also really sarcastic and I really like teasing people. And so when I like somebody, I more or less just try and freaking like make fun of them. Would it make sense to you guys if I've thought about this and I've said this a few times. I've looked back on this before and thought maybe that's not necessarily the case. But I used to tell people that I'm probably the most realistic as a tsundere as you can get in the real world. Like, because I think real tsunderes, like behind pride and whatnot, you can get over your tsun very quickly. Because character development, that's how humans are, generally speaking. But I'm like, I'm as realistic of a tsundere as you can get. Let me give you an example of this. And I've told this story before. Back in 2022, when I first started streaming and I started getting to know a bunch of people, a lot of the people that I got to know were huge into like Valorant or League of Legends. At that point, I pretty much quit League. So I wasn't super interested in playing League, but I was playing a lot of Valorant with these people. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, sure. I do enjoy playing Valorant with people. Not ever by myself, but I like playing games with friends. Like, I don't think there's anybody that will say they don't like playing games with friends. But I have this weird mentality in my head where it's really hard for me to personally reach out to people. And instead, I get this twisted sense of satisfaction when people reach out to me rather than the other way around. It feels like I've won in some weird capacity. So I remember watching a friend's stream, and they were streaming Valorant, and I noticed that they had a 4-man. They were missing a 5th, and I was like lurking in the chat, and I was trying to figure out like I kind of want to, because I wanted to play. I wanted to be their 5th, but I was like making sure like do they have like a 5th member lined up or something? And they were talking like, yeah, do we have a 5th? And they were like, oh no, we might not have a 5th today. And I was like, okay, great. So the normal thing to do, what the normal person would do, would be to ask. I was in their chat. I could have just asked, hey, can I join? Can I be your 5th? And I know they would have said yes, because I played with this group before. But no, I had to be extra. I could not initiate because I'm a freaking piece of crap, okay? So instead, what I did was I checked their Discord to see what server that they're on, and I noticed that there are 4 of them in like a very specific Discord server, and I was like, okay, great. I log into my Valorant account and I make sure that my activity status is on, so it says playing Valorant. And also when I logged into Valorant, they would notice me online because they would see that I was playing. And so what I did was I logged into my Valorant account, and then I entered the practice range to showcase like, hey, right now I'm not like in a group with people yet. I'm just practicing. I'm just, shooting bots, like pretending I'm good at the game. And then after like 10, 20 seconds of me in the practice range, I wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting there in the practice range. I got a message from my friend. He's like, hey, you want to be our 5th in our Valorant team? And I was like, well, I'm glad you asked. I was just planning on practicing, but you know what? Why not? I can't say no. So I ended up infiltrating their group and I played Valor with them and it was really fun. And I did it in the most cursed and like out of pocket way that you could do. Like it would have been so much easier if I just asked, I wouldn't have had to make like all these extra steps. But no, because I'm a freaking complicated jerk. Some people would call me a female dog. But I had to make things way more complicated than it had to be, and instead, I did it. I achieved my goal. I made them ask me rather than me ask them, and in my like prideful world, that's a dub. That's the kind of complicated and pain in the butt kind of person I am, and I'm proud. I can never initiate. Except I do, but not in that particular case, and in other weird cases here and there. That's like a story I tell people or especially more recently, because that was a recent story. That's a story I tell people to kind of inform them of the kind of pain in the butt person that I am. And that even though I really wanted to join their group, I was not allowed to outwardly express that I wanted to do it. I had to make them think that it was their idea and not mine. And so that's the world I live in. A world of I have a lot of pride. I don't know where this pride comes from. I'm gonna be honest with you, because I grew up with so much freaking self-deprecation and low self-esteem, and yet I still had and have a ton of pride. It is my biggest. If you had to like assign one of the 7 deadly sins to me, for me it would be pride. And I don't know where this comes from, because I'm not a super arrogant person, I wouldn't say. In my head I can be, because like if I were to play like Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, or even 4 with somebody, and they were just like, yeah, I play casually. In my head, I would just be thinking like, yeah, no, like I'm a lot better than this guy. Like I'm gonna destroy this person. And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay too. Like I play occasionally. Like when I'm good at something, I'm very prideful about it. And in my head, I like to think that like, yes, I am good at this thing. But I'm also really scared of losing that pride. Despite being as prideful as I am, I'm not a competitive person. I don't know if that makes sense, because I feel like a very large tie-in with having a lot of pride is wanting to be able to be better than people, like your need to be better than other people. And so when you win, you feel great, and when you lose, it feels terrible. That like logically makes sense, because that's kind of what pride is. It's being like very self-assured and arrogant in how good you are at something. And when you lose, you just took some damage to your pride. But I am not competitive. Not in the way that I think most people put it, because I like competing. I like testing myself against other people, whether it be like playing different games or doing new things, like fighting games, for example. I like playing fighting games because I'm just constantly limit testing to see how well I can like improve at X thing. But I don't feel a constant need to win or to beat people, like be better than other people. It's more about like constant improvement. And when I am good at something, I'm very proud about it. I will take a lot of pride that I am good at X thing. And it's why I like to get into new things and like try new things and get good at them, because it feels good to be good at something. And I take a lot of pride in the things that I am decently good at. And even though that list is pretty small, but I'm not competitive in the way that I think most people think people are, or think competitiveness is, which is like that desire and drive to constantly just be better and win at everything. Because that's a big difference for me. I don't care about winning. Because if I win, yeah, sure, like I'll feel good, like that boosts my pride. But if I lose, that just means I have to improve. I have to strive to get better, and I will just be like, hey, let's play some more. Let's try another round. I think I know how to win. And that's me, or that's me and my pride, which is kind of interesting, I guess. I don't know how interesting that actually is. It's my vice, or pride is my deadly sin. What are all the 7 deadly sins? Gluttony. I don't know why gluttony is the first one that comes to mind. I know gluttony is also a thing that exists. I mean, I really like food. I don't think I'm like that big of a foodie though, unfortunately. There's greed. There is lust. There is envy. I think being envious is a sin. There's laziness. I forgot what that one was called though. It's called sloth, right, or something. And there's anger or wrath. Meliodas. Yeah, no, my sins are definitely sloth and pride, which are like, now that I think about it, is a very interesting pairing of sins to have, because I'm lazy, but at the same time I really like being good at things. But there you go. Is it possible to be both prideful and humble? I've always thought it's weird that the opposite of pride is humility. Because my image of humility is like never I guess, well, if pride is taking, or is being very dude, how do you even define pride? I don't even know how to define it, because I was about to say it's like taking pride in something. It's like that doesn't make sense if you're trying to define what pride is. Saying pride is being prideful doesn't make sense. And saying being like having a lot of humility is being humble doesn't make sense, because that's not the whole point of trying to define something, is trying to explain to you what that thing is without using the thing. It's like looking up what is pride, like pride definition, and then getting like the antonym of humility, and then being like, oh, okay, so what's humility? And then you look up humility, and it's just the antonym of pride. And you're like, what the fudge, man? What are you supposed to do with this kind of information? There's like nothing that you can do with that kind of information. It makes literal 0 sense. Oh my god, dude. I guess that's what the tsun and the tsundere is. It's just pride. And then the dere is the, I don't know, the kyas. The uwu kyas. Oh god. What other data types are there? I talked about tsunderes. I said how much I like kuderes. What else is there? Oh yeah, there's dandere. And you guys are like, what the hell is a dandere? And honestly, I don't freaking know either. The only reason why I know is because my friend Haru took a dere test, and he got dandere. And I got kudere, which I can kind of see. But I think my issue with being a kudere is that I'm only ku to people I don't know, and to everybody else I'm dere. Or tsun. Not ku. Because I don't talk often to people I don't know very well. And so when the time comes, I usually just tend to talk way more. I'm trying to think, what other dere? There's yandere, tsundere, kudere. There has to be more, right? Let me look this up. There has to be more. All dere types. Oh, interesting. Dandere is actually like one of the main dere types. I didn't know that. I thought it was one of the weird dere. Dandere is like being shy around the person that you like, I guess, is like the general idea. Oh, and there's Did It, which is you're just constantly happy and like the people. Oh, there's Hime Did It, which is the kind of characters. And among other things. I guess that's it for the Did It types, huh? You can only talk about tropes for so long. I guess. Or like tropey, like Did It type stuff. I don't know. Maybe I was a little annoying. Dang, talk about Haru, I have to say. Because Haru is actually technically he's not a mod anymore because he deleted his Twitch channel. Haru was a mod and he had a big tendency to go through the chats that he was modded for, and he would just start deleting bots. Like he would go through, look for bots in people's chats, and would just start deleting them all. And a part of me was thinking, should I just start like going through and looking for bots to delete? Cause I do see quite a few bots in my chat. Cause I know that they're bots because I've seen them in other people's chats. I don't know where the heck they're coming from. So there's that, I guess. You guys know how sad it is to do a just chatting stream and then look over at the chat box and it's empty or almost empty? This is why I don't do just chatting often, man. I should just stick to playing games. This is too much for my heart. I'll be back to doing other stuff soon. I don't know if I'll do more Pal World. That game does not work very well with my computer. Maybe it'll work better now that I'm in freaking turbo mode. I don't like turbo mode though, solely because it makes the fan very loud. And I'm probably gonna look over this VOD to see just exactly how loud the fan is, but it is very loud and I don't like it. To be quite frank. Maybe I should delete some bots. Nah, actually that's too much work. Plus, I'm pretty sure bots can sometimes actually add to your viewer count. Although, I'm pretty sure, generally speaking, they don't. I don't know. Average viewer count in Twitch makes no sense sometimes. It's probably gonna be a short stream now that I think about it. I was planning on actually playing a game or something once I figure that out. I have no idea what to do with today's stream, and I've run out of topics. Yeah. I am kind of excited about some other things moving forward because there's a lot of like shorts ideas I have moving forward for the YouTube channel. The reason why I say that is because before, all my shorts on YouTube and TikTok were like stream highlights. Pretty much all of them were just stream highlights. Just like take a bit of my stream and then find a funny moment, clip it, edit it down, send it through. But more recently, specifically 2 shorts, or my second most recent short, I experimented with a different format, which was more just like mini story time. I'm not super happy with that particular short, but I think it's because we need to add a little bit more editing to it, which is going to be interesting because it's going to be a little bit different of an editing style than what I and Mel have been doing. But I have some ideas moving forward as to how I could operate those short concepts. I just like lost my train of thought there. But there's quite a few ideas that we have from that perspective, and I'm kind of excited and nervous to see how things go. Also, I think I've solved a little bit of the short algorithm and timing on when to release stuff. I'm not sure yet. I'll have to experiment more with it, but we'll see. But yeah, I need to go to the bathroom. That's probably a good moment to end the stream for today. I think more often than not, people just go to the bathroom and then come back. But I got nothing, so we'll just end it off that. Cool. I might play Pal World in the future. I'm not sure. I guess it depends how interested you guys are in seeing my Pal, or in seeing me develop my Pal World over just me playing it in my own time and then occasionally streaming it. I think I'd be more partial to streaming it more often than not. So we'll see. Maybe I'll stream tomorrow. Or not. I know I will stream on Thursday. I don't know about tomorrow. We'll see. With that said, thank you guys for watching. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. I always forget my own like ending thing. I never planned for that to be how I ended streams. It just worked out that way. But yeah, if you haven't, please stretch, get some water, take care of yourselves. If it's late at night, please go to bed. And I'll see you guys on Thursday at the latest. Unless something terrible happens to me, in which case I guess I won't be seeing you on Thursday. I'll be seeing you in hell. Good night. See you guys.